Welcome to Defending Our Children with host Craig Sawman Sawyer, former Navy SEAL and federal agent, and Executive Director Forrest Seeley, both of Veterans for Child Rescue, an NGO actively engaged in the fight against child trafficking. Defending Our Children is the show that empowers the people with the information you need to know.
Every day in America, children are trafficked for sex. In schools, shopping malls, truck stops, clubs, and bars. Think it can't happen in your neighborhood? Think again. If you suspect a child is being trafficked for sex, call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center 24-hour hotline at 1-888-3737-888.
Welcome, everyone, to Defending Our Children. We are on today with a mother that has an interesting case to share with you, and I'll let her begin to unpack it. Her name is Jennifer Verna. She is local here in Tucson, Arizona, and it's a case that my wife has been making me aware of and informing me about, and it's upsetting for multiple reasons. We also have today with us Elizabeth Alegria, who joins us as well because she's another adjacent ally to Jennifer and knows quite a bit about the case, and I'll let the ladies unpack it. But Jennifer, thank you for coming on the show. I look forward to learning more about the case, and to the degree that you would have people be aware, please let them know a little bit about your background and set the story up for today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. A little bit of background about me. I was married to a man once upon a time. His name was Efren El Cornejo, and we reside here in Pima County in Tucson. Was married to Efren, had children with Efren, and Efren was a Border Patrol agent. In particular, he was a BORTAC agent, and at one point the deputy commander of the BORTAC unit out of the Tucson sector. So that's kind of a little bit of the background. Something about me: I've been a firefighter and a paramedic for nearly 20 years. So, sorry, a little bit nervous to talk about.
No, don't be. It's a tough situation, a tough story. So we appreciate you sharing it with us. So take your time. We're going to be all right.
Thank you. So when I met Mr. Cornejo, I was in my early 20s. I had a little girl of my own, and we'll just call her JV to just respect her anonymity. It's in all the court records listed as JV, but I'm just going to stick with that. Okay. My little girl was about 3 or 4 when we met Efren and he came into our lives. And I thought, wow, this man's pretty fantastic. He was in law enforcement with the Border Patrol. He's military. Seemed like a nice guy. So the rest is history. We got married, and then we had 2 more children together. So I've got a total of 3 children. And we were married for about 14 years. But he and I were in the middle of separating when eventually JV came to me and disclosed what had happened to her. My oldest had just turned 18. She was 18 and a couple months old. And she said, Mom, I need you to come into my room and read this letter, and I need you to completely read it. And, something that caught me really weird in big, bold letters was an really old address. And I thought, what is this? And as I began to read that letter, every wave of emotion, from wanting to vomit, to wanting to cry, to having my body uncontrollably tremble and shake and thinking, I don't know what to do here. In the letter, JV, my daughter, went on to disclose that dad, the only dad that the child had ever had, he had raised her, I thought, as, just one of the kids. But he had been sexually molesting her from the time she was 9 till the time she was about 15 years old. And talk about getting hit with it was like a ton of bricks. Very difficult. Very, very, very difficult situation. Did I handle things right or perfect? No, maybe not. There's not a rule book for this situation. I thought, I'm a smart woman. I'm a firefighter. Surely I would know if something like this was happening. Surely my child would come to me and tell me these things. I was so confused. He's in law enforcement. Every wave of emotion that you could think of hit me all at the same time. Had a lot of soul searching to do with that. Was terrified if I went to my father or my grandfather, what they might do. I knew I couldn't go to them first. I knew I had to go to law enforcement first. I don't know anything about law. I'm not a cop. So I thought, all I know is from TV shows, like, you better find an attorney. You better talk to somebody that knows, somebody that's smarter than what I am. So I began that process of trying to find an attorney and try to get help and try to figure out what to do. What was the next step in this process?
And what was that like? Trying to find out what is the proper procedure? What are you supposed to do? Is that did that add to your anxiety? It seemed like it would. Like, what is the proper thing you do in a terrible situation like that?
It did. So there's fear and shame of well, how do I protect my children? Maybe he'll just agree to stay away from the kids. Maybe that, how do I handle this? But I knew in my heart, the man was not going to take this, sitting down, so to speak. So I figured out, with an attorney, that we had to call DCS and file proper reports with child authorities. I've had the other kids to think about. I didn't know if they had also been sexually abused or not. Finally found an attorney, and then my oldest and I ended up going down to Marana Police Department to file the report. My oldest said, "Mom, I don't want the cops coming to the house. That our house is the one place I feel safe." At the time, Efren and I were living separate. We were potentially going through or transitioning to a divorce is what it was looking like. But we were taking our time with that. We were in no rush. And in fact, I thought things were pretty friendly and good between him and I. So the house that we were living in, Efren wasn't residing in. So we decided that was the right thing. We drove down to the police department and we filed a report, and that was horrible. Both my child and I were shaking, scared. There's this whole other component of also, I'm going against somebody who is an elite special weapons guy. He's been a firearms instructor. He's been a sniper in the U.S. military. This is somebody that if I end up pissing him off or my daughter pisses him off, are we going to wind up dead? What is the Border Patrol going to do with all of this? Those were the thoughts that was going on in my head. We could wind up dead as a result of reporting this. So that was pretty terrifying. Then we reported it.
We've got to cut to a break here in a sec, Jennifer. So I'll just back you up in the aspect of, BORTAC are highly trained. They're very well respected within the Border Patrol and law enforcement. We've dealt with them several times. One of the guys on my team was former BORTAC out of Texas. And those guys are highly respected. They're highly capable and trained professionals. And it's, it's painful to hear about something like this out of one of these units. And it's a complex situation. But folks, we're going to continue unpacking this for you right off on the other side of this break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
To the untrained eye, it's almost never obvious. But trafficking is happening around you, and every child is vulnerable. Even yours. Even me. If I don't know you care, if you don't show you're interested, someone else might.
Welcome back, everyone, to Defending Our Children. We're on with Jennifer Verna. Jennifer, you were just beginning to unpack what it's like confronting a husband who's highly trained and capable, law enforcement, and in a position of authority. And you've got your child safety to consider and potentially now yours. So if you would continue allowing us to hear how that went.
So we went down to Marana Police Department. I reported this to law enforcement, and they were very kind. It was very difficult. I explained to them my concerns that, from a safety component, how alarmed I was. B, from another component of not really knowing, would his law enforcement status cover this up? Would his security clearance, because he had a pretty high one, would this be covered up? Where would that take my family? What about my other two kids, the two younger kids? At the time, they were 10 and 12. I didn't know what had happened to them, if anything had happened to them. So we got kind of a canned response of, well, you can go down and get an order of protection, but as soon as you go get the order of protection, he's going to know it. Then it's got to get served, kind of this whole process. And I said, well, as of right now, he's on a week-long work trip. They call it camp. He was out at camp for the week. And so I knew I had about a week's time to figure out how to get an order of protection. Went down there, went and initially tried to request one, and it ended up getting denied. So talk about really alarming. So now I'm sitting there with no order of protection. It got denied. I got kind of yelled at by the judge saying, this is a family court issue. You need to go to family court. Family court said they couldn't do an emergency ex parte hearing soon enough. As I found out later on, I ended up relieving my first attorney of her duties and hired another one who was much better. But the first attorney hadn't helped me prepare those documents appropriately. But talk about a scary situation. Now I've got all of these children that could potentially, he could come to school and pick them up. And be gone with them, and I just didn't know what to do. Eventually, we did get an order of protection, and law enforcement did get involved. DCS got involved. The Children's Advocacy Center in Pima County got involved. My younger children had gone to a couple of different interviews with the Children's Advocacy Center. And there was, without getting too far into the weeds with that, there was initially no disclosure by my other two children, but then subsequently by my youngest child, there was disclosure. So, that's kind of where we...
And for people that aren't aware, what exactly does that mean at that point?
When I say disclosure, I mean having one of your children either come to you, go to a medical professional, a teacher, somebody trusted, and they have disclosed that they have been sexually abused. That's the terminology that I'm using for disclosure.
Okay, thank you.
For those listening, for people that don't know, for children to have to go to the CAC, it's very overwhelming for them. They're in a room, they've never met these people, they've never talked to these people, and they're asking these children about something personal that's happened to them that they already don't want to talk about, they don't want to have to deal with and pretend it didn't happen. So it's very normal for her children to not want to say something. It really is a difficult thing for them.
And to parlay off of that, they, law enforcement tells you too, like they didn't want me really telling the kids where I was going or what I was doing. They didn't want me doing anything that could have been misconstrued as me leading them. So here I am as a mom who normally explains things to my kids, and here I'm taking them down to this place for this weird thing that the kids were calling it a weird thing, like that was weird, mom. It's really bizarre when you go through what we've gone through with the courts and the CAC. Your power as a mom and as a parent is sort of taken away because there are so many rules you have to adhere to in order to be hands off and do things the right way.
Trying to do it the right and procedurally and morally and ethically correct. It's a bit of a high wire act to get everything right. I could appreciate that. All right. So it's very upsetting, very upsetting. You sound cool now, and in hindsight, having worked through it now and likely having told it multiple times, but knowing people and having dealt with things with our daughter, with her abductor, and I'm a national security whistleblower, so I blew the whistle on a high-ranking law enforcement official too, so I know what that's like, and the abuse of authority and retaliation for that, and it's a strange place to be.
It sounds like to me, Craig, that as an observer, that you had this situation where you're working with law enforcement and they have a set of standards and protocols that they're following, and they're telling Jennifer, hey, we need you to do X, Y, and Z, which is totally bizarre to her, and bringing in the kids. Hey, we're going to go on this trip. We're going to go meet these people and we're going to talk about some stuff. And you can't even, Jennifer, you can't even say, hey, this is going to be, I just want to prepare you. This is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but I'm there for you. You can't even tell them that. You're just saying, hey, we're going to go talk to some people and they're strangers, and they walk into that. And then it's like, hey, we want to talk about the most intimate violence that you've ever participated in. Go. It's kind of like that. And they're not even.
And those procedures are there ultimately in attempt to get at the truth so that no parent leads the witness, or taints them unwittingly and puts anything in their head. They want it to be as natural and organic and spontaneous as possible, so that the law enforcement can say, okay, do you want to tell us about it? But can you imagine the agony of being a parent and knowing what the child's going to have to talk about and go through, and not being able to prepare them, saying, it's okay, sweetie, I'll be there for you. It's going to be tough. Get ready for it. You're not trying to change their mind or lead them, but it's like you do want to have them be supported and not afraid. You know what I mean? So
right.
That'd be tough. Was it? Jennifer, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but we're just trying to
I
put
mean,
ourselves
absolutely. It was very, very tough. I still to this day think, how could I have handled things better or done things better? As a mom, you're always super hard on yourselves. That was awful. It would not be the way that I would choose to handle things, because I would want to give my kids that love and compassion as a mom that I want to give to them. It's definitely a very bizarre
chain of events. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got a minute to the next break. Let's begin the conversation. What was it like then? You've got her there, and they're going to question her. Do you want to let us know what that was like?
So are you talking about the CAC or at
Yes.
Marana PD? With the CAC. Yeah, so they take, each one of the kids in and do a separate interview. Parents aren't allowed to go in. So, I basically stayed out in their lobby area until everything was done, and then after that, law enforcement took me separate from the kids and then spoke to me on that. And going to the CAC, that was a process. I think we wound up there 2 or 3 times for my youngest.
Okay. We're going to
So,
continue this on the other side of this break. Folks, stay tuned, though. We will be right back with a lot more from Jennifer Verna.
Hey, Tim James here, founder of ChemicalFreeBody.com, also the health coach for Craig Sawyer and Forrest Seeley. And I want to help working class people get their energy back and quit having all these health issues. Here's the problems. The average person is carrying around 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material in your colon. This is not good. Number 2, we have terrible nutrition because the nutrition has been farmed out of our soils and processed out. Plus, processed foods are killing 4,300 people a day. We need good nutrition. Number 3, our gut microbiome's all jacked up from all these toxins and pesticides and stress. We have to balance that. We also have tremendous amounts of inflammation in the body, and we have an overload of toxins from heavy metals, radiation, and pollution. Craig and I and Forrest got together. We created what we call our Defending Our Health bundle. This is a bundle of our products over here at ChemicalFreeBody.com that will revolutionize your health. We've put them together. Green 85 is going to come in and supply you with all the nutrition you need. Our Gut Detox will take care of all that impacted garbage inside of you and keep it out. Toxin Detox will get the heavy metals, the radiation, and the pollution out. The Nano Silver, the triple action, will start balancing the gut microbiome, and the Turmeric 100 will start reducing inflammation in the body. You put it all together, and working class people can now get their energy back and their health back and start to heal themselves. We need you to be healthy so that you can fight for freedom and fight for these kids. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/DOC and check out the Defending Our Health bundle and all of the other wonderful products that we offer, and we look forward to helping you have the best life ever.
Welcome back, everyone, to Defending Our Children. We're on with Jennifer Verna. She's telling us the difficult story of learning that her youngest daughter had been molested by a husband and is in law enforcement, and he's well connected, and he's highly trained. And how do you go about this? And a very, very difficult situation, but she powered through it, and we're hearing all about it. So before we go any further, I want to just encourage everybody to go on our website, v4cr.org, go to our shop page and buy some of our Rescue Roast coffee. Number 1, it's awesome. Number 2, it funds our operation and mission for the children. And we've got, as we travel around the country now, law enforcement buying it, and tactical companies and manufacturers buying it to use in their offices for all of their personnel, because every bag they buy helps us spare more children from harm. So God bless everybody that pitches in on our Rescue Roast. So thank you for that. Jennifer, without further delay, you were just about to start talking about them questioning your daughter. Is there anything for people to know about that experience? If you want to share any of that, because the idea is to empower the listeners with what they need to know about what happens in these situations.
I've still got to be careful, as I said, with my youngest. There may be some things that are still ongoing, being
Sure.
investigated. So I'm going to tread gently there. But the thing to know is that the folks at the CAC do have really good intentions. They do have some great programs that my children and myself took advantage of. There was basically like an 8-week family bonding program where they talked about what grooming looks like, what abuse is, how you can talk to your parents, what healthy dynamics are. And so that was probably one of the best things that our family took away from the CAC, healthy boundaries, that kind of stuff. And for that, I'm really grateful that the CAC exists for, those kind of resources for families.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the these programs, they start out well-meaning and run by good people. Some of them falter over the years, and some of them power on and continue to do great work. So, it seems to all be about the quality of the people and their choices and their personal moral and ethical character as to whether or not the institution continues, and leadership as well, to set the standards and maintain them there. But appreciate you sharing that. Well, then, what happened next, Jennifer?
So basically, we get to the point where I'm racking my brain as a mom. Eventually, I started thinking, friends had to have done this to somebody else. I probably appeared like I was crazy speaking to other parents, of other friends, making sure that other children weren't hurt, harmed, that he hadn't done that to somebody else. Well, it came to me like a lightning bolt in my head where it was like, wait a minute, he had another girlfriend before me that had 2 daughters. And there was kind of, when he and I first started dating, a little bit of, I think he may have still been kind of seeing her here and there, kind of a bleed over, and he explained to me at that time that he was going to continue to see her daughters, that they were really important. And eventually it became kind of problematic. And I said, look, either we're going to date and we're in this, or we're not, but I'm not going to do this. Well, it came to me like in the middle of the night while I'm pacing like a lightning bolt. Wait a minute. This lady has 2 little girls and was a single mom similarly to me. So what I did next was try to track this woman down. I looked through the Pima County Assessor's website and I found where this woman lived. And I went to her house and I knocked on the door. No answer. I left a note and didn't hear anything. A couple days later, I hear back from the mom and she says, what is this all about? And I started crying and I kind of explained that Efren had been molesting my oldest daughter and I needed to know if, anything like that had happened to her girls. She began crying and she said, I found him, I stopped dating him. I found him in bed with my daughter in the middle of the night and they got into an argument over it. And she said she had talked to her daughter, but she said, oh my God, I'm terrified. I need to call you back. She hung up and a while later, a couple hours later, she called back crying and she said, he did it. He molested my daughter. So at that point, it was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Just feeling sick over it. 1 kid's enough, 2 kids, 3 kids. Who knows how many times that this man has done this and that we don't know about. At any rate, that information got taken to law enforcement. That got reported. Law enforcement does their end of things, investigating. I was questioned on things, but eventually Marana PD decided to move forward and we were notified that Mr. Cornejo was arrested at the Border Patrol station. So, and then eventually after their investigations was indicted on 14 different charges. So that's kind of how we got to that end. It's been a long process. This all started in 2021. Okay. We just wrapped up court in 25. So it's been, 4-ish years and some change.
Yeah. These things don't usually move all that quick.
No.
It's a bit of a sluggish process sometimes.
So I imagine, Craig, just like your experience that you shared with me and Elizabeth, that because of this time frame that you're going through, it's a up and down roller coaster with your children, and you're wanting to move on. You're wanting to have a continual healing, but yet you're having to dig back into it. So that has to be gut wrenching.
Absolutely. Just trying to keep it together, keep my job intact, keep the kids intact. Therapy for all the kids, therapy for me. Dealing now with family court and criminal court. I thought I was losing my mind. Rough
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, not just everybody wants to hear about tough cases either. And that must be difficult too, because I mean, we deal with it every day. When we try to tell people what's going on in the country, most of them don't want to know because they don't have the moral courage to face it. And a family tragedy like that, especially abuse, it's something that I imagine people will just turn away from and just, that'd make you feel even crazier not having anybody to go to. Was there anybody that you could really lean on and had a strong shoulder through all this?
Eventually disclosed to, my family what was going on. My family was my source of comfort. I ended up talking to somebody who I thought was going to be in my corner, who eventually stabbed my children and myself in the back. It was rough. Therapist. Therapy is good. But I felt like a ghost ship floating alone out on the ocean with no crew and kind of just
Trying to get through it.
pretty hairy.
Wow. So what was your motivation? What do you think that caused you to go, okay, I'm going to grind through this because I have to?
Number one, first and foremost, always my kids. I could not allow my children to be put back in harm's way with this man. I could not allow him to hurt them one iota anymore.
Okay. Well, there you hear it, folks. That mama bear spirit speaks out loud and clear. It inspires me. And if we had more of it, there'd be a lot safer kids out there. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with a lot more from Jennifer Verna.
Brushwood Media Network.
Are you or a loved one struggling with addiction? Rancho Milagro Recovery is an accredited drug and alcohol addiction recovery program treating the whole person through their lifelong recovery process. Our process incorporates both medication-assisted treatment and psychological therapy to help all aspects of an individual's mind, body, and spirit. Our lavish accommodation sits on 60 acres of outdoor greatness where your privacy and discretion is our utmost concern. Find lasting recovery and walk away from addiction one step at a time. RanchoMilagroRecovery.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Defending Our Children. We're on with Jennifer Verna. She was just saying something that really, I think, made us all stop and take a breath. And she said she felt like a ghost ship adrift. And she was in this court system. She's trying to defend her child and now herself from a law enforcement agent, highly trained and well connected, and in a system that is going very slowly, taking years to process this case. Her child was molested by a husband. It's something that would discourage anybody. But she's a mama bear. She loves her child enough to get in there and fight, enough to get in there and grind through the system, enough to wade through whatever the court system has and make sure her kid is okay. And that's what it's about. That's what inspires me. That's where I think the rest of us can go, okay, that's the mama bear spirit that shines through. And even though she felt all alone in some ways and the system was frustrating, she rolled up her sleeves and started powering through it and to get her done. So I respect that. And man, there's a lot of tough situations like that. And just looking at the few times that we've had to deal with things legally in our family and others, it's man, it's not easy. So there's a lot of moral courage to put on a brave face and go in there and do your best against a big machine. So Jennifer, please continue.
See here, I think we kind of left off. Where should I pick back up?
Yeah, well, you had just said the ghost ship thing. Like, man, you were
Yeah.
You were seeing therapists. You were dealing with your kids. You were trying to, the law enforcement and the legal system was taking longer than you probably wanted it to.
Yeah. So we started moving through this process. Not only I had a family court case going on at the same time trying to fight for my kids, and this criminal court case going on, and I nearly lost my job and my career. It was a lot to handle, trying to handle my kids' emotions. I'm proud of my kids for being able to handle things the way that they did. They're brave too, and without them as kind of my, they were my,
your anchor.
I don't even know, anchor. Thank you. Yeah, they were my anchor. They're the reason why I do everything. So, yeah, pretty tough. But we started getting into all this court stuff, and then I started becoming censored in court, where these criminal attorneys are just horrible. They're ruthless, and instead of the criminal being treated like a criminal, it's myself and my barely turned 18-year-old being treated like a criminal. It's we had a criminal investigator, I don't know how you say it, but for his team, defense investigator, they came in, they started investigating us. They started contacting family members, disclosing what had happened to the children to other family members that weren't privy to the information. Just horrible stuff they started pulling and doing. And it's like, okay, now not only am I upset at, the predator for doing what he's done, the pedophile, I'm upset with this whole court system. And now we're being dragged through the mud on this stuff and made to seem like we're crazy. Eventually, a gag order went into place for a period of time where I was not allowed to speak about any of what was going on. And so I had to just sit there, quietly while Efren continued to talk to his buddy law enforcement agents and their wives, people that I've known for years. Who knows what he told them? Probably, I can only guess, but it allowed him almost 5 years of roaming around the community and putting on a good show. Nothing to see here. Yep, I got arrested at the Border Patrol station, but nothing to see here. I'm not into any kind of trouble.
Jennifer, let me ask you this. Did you bring the previous wife in on the situation when the detectives or the investigators were interviewing family members so that they could learn that he had done this before?
So are you talking about the mother of the other two girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh yeah. All of that got reported to law enforcement, and they had to investigate that thoroughly. She is not somebody that I'm a friend of. I don't even know. I don't know her daughters. I don't know much about that family other than the only tie there is that he had dated her before me, and that she had the two girls, the two daughters that she had. So when you're looking at our case and you see the two victims, JV and AG, JV is my daughter. AG is this other woman's daughter. She is the other victim.
Okay.
And then so just to get some context, I guess he began dating that woman in Cochise County and then eventually in Pima County. Cochise County, I guess, had to do some investigation as well. And this is kind of it's something that maybe with law that needs to change, getting jurisdictions to work together better, because there's things that happen in Cochise County that didn't get brought here into Pima County with that other victim. So, yeah, that's kind of how that looks. I'm sorry to jump around on you a little bit, but it's kind of the clarification on that.
So while they were talking, Jennifer, to the rest of your family, to your kids, and doing this other, their investigation into it, it's important for people to know, like, what did that do to the people around you? How did that change your family dynamic? How did that go about, and how you keep, your household sane, yourself sane?
Our household became, I feel like, a place of sorrow, like for quite a while. How can it not, when all of this is coming out and the children are disclosing this stuff? And now, my poor son, all of my kids, but, he had this father figure that was, a BORTAC operator, somebody that he looked up to. And now that's also being, destroyed. The whole entire family unit, what we thought we had, it just decimated mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, we were all pretty broken, and we do have faith. I'm a Christian. We do have that faith to lean on. We did start going back to church more. I feel like that is a foundation that kind of kept us sane. But it was a struggle day in and day out. There was school missed, there was work missed. It was hard as doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. But eventually you've got to move on. You've got to try to pull yourself up and do the best that you can. And that was what I would tell the kids. Like, we've just got to try to do our best. Let's just give it our best. And that's all we can do. Some days are going to be better than others. And, if some days we needed to stay home in our PJs and not do a darn thing, then that's what we did.
A lot of people don't see the harm in this when it happens to children, because they don't see blood and guts. They don't see a bloody body covered with a sheet, so they don't perceive the harm. What they don't realize, the trauma for the victim and the harm for the entire family, and it shocks the whole community. I mean, it's something that should never happen, and the ramifications go far and wide, and it goes deep. So people need to be aware of. I appreciate you sharing this with us, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
Welcome back to Defending Our Children. And Craig, chemicalfreebody.com, you and I both use this. Green 85. This is a sponsor of ours. They have a Green 85 product, which is a powder form of juicing. It's got 85 essential vitamins and minerals that we need. It's a great product. Tim James is our big supporter. Check out chemicalfreebody.com/DOC, and the monies that we make off of this support our mission. So check it out.
We dig it. Healthy stuff. All right, Jennifer, what was it that you encountered? You're getting ready for court. You're dealing with all aspects of this. What was it like during that time? What was happening around you?
The kids and I began to we were feeling really, really paranoid, very jumpy. We began to have some really weird things happen to us. We left a monster truck rally, and somewhere on the way home, we're getting alerts on our phone that air tags are tracking us in my vehicle. And we looked all over the vehicle. We couldn't find it, but this air tag had tracked us for quite a while. Air tag got put on my oldest daughter, JV's vehicle, and was being followed. We were looking all over the vehicles for these air tags. We screenshotted the alerts of that. We reported that to Marana PD. At the time in 2021, Apple didn't have the anti-stalking laws that they do now. But we reported all of that. And, somebody, I can't say who, I have a feeling who it was, but somebody was tracking us and following us. To have multiple vehicles have different air tags put on, taken off, and then put back on several different times over, made me feel pretty uneasy. We began to have to install cameras all over our property and our house. I was terrified that somebody was going to sneak up in the dead of the night. So we had to put cameras all over the house. Very paranoid.
Did you pick up anything
Yeah.
on the cameras ever?
And eventually, no, when we got cameras, because we got big cameras,
Oh,
they
okay.
weren't the little
They're
bitty
deterrent
ones.
cameras too, not just
Right. And with lights that come on, that kind of a thing. Efren at one point had the garage door code to just come on into the house because at one point, if the kids left something, he would just come on in. We had to change the garage door codes. We had to change the house keys. We had to change everything for security purposes. And I mean, I've wanted to move several times over. Still, sometimes I want to move. There's a predator still roaming the streets of Tucson, and at some point, there's still a fear that he might do something to me or to one of my family members, and that's just the way that I feel. But yeah, that was pretty wild to have something like that happen, and just to always feel like somebody was tracking our every move. It was not very comforting.
And as an adult, that's obviously, like you said, it made you paranoid all the time. Like, what did it do for your children? I know with mine, like, we weren't sleeping. Like, explain how that was, because I know how much when they don't feel safe at home because of these things.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect your children and you guys?
I mean, the kids are, I get up to go get a glass of water or something, and I see the kids that have been tucked in earlier are now out on the couches with the dogs curled up around them. Or I come back out when everything had kind of been, lights turned off for the night, and every light in the house is back on because the kids are scared and they're worried. You know, we're having to really lock things up extra and accidentally locking ourselves out of the house because everybody is so paranoid about making sure that we're safe. Not feeling safe sometimes going for the kids to and from school, having to have all their school records changed and having to take all those legal documents with the indictments, telling these teachers, he cannot pick these kids up. He is not allowed to have contact with children right now without another adult present. They were scared. There was a lot of, well, what if this mom? What if that mom? What if, and I tried my best to ease those fears and those concerns, but it's like, man, the kids are bringing up valid points. And I mean, for the first little while, the kids didn't go to school. Like, they took a little break. And then eventually when I sent them back to school, I was terrified to send them. And I know they were terrified too.
Well,
yeah.
I've fought through several situations in my life that really hammered on my sleep, and I realized, man, you can't be very effective at anything if you can't get much good sleep. So how would the kids do very well in school if they're scared and it's affecting their
Right.
sleep? And how could you do as a paramedic? Could you really do your best if you're struggling with all this and not getting good sleep? And I just say that to kind of paint the picture to show how far-reaching the ramifications of this are. It goes in all directions, a ripple effect. And man, somebody has their own selfish ideas in mind and not realizing who all is going to be harmed in it. And law enforcement know that, to ask people like, man, well, what were you thinking? You just wanted a red light or something, and you didn't think about, well, if you weren't looking, you hit a family, and who all were you going to harm? Well, molesting a child is one of those crimes where most people don't really comprehend how far the ramifications really are. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. That's all.
It's a lifetime. It will never go away. You can't change it. You can't get back what you lost. it is a lifetime of brutal emotional baggage for the children to carry, for me to carry, my parents, the kids' grandparents and great grandparents. This has affected everyone in our life. It's a giant wrecking ball.
So sorry, but I'm grateful that you love your children enough to be the mama bear that they need, even when this kind of a thing happens. And it's amazing that humans tend to find that moral courage and that strength when it's really needed, to just find a way to just work through the problem, keep working through it. And a lot of times it's not glamorous and mistakes are made, but we keep fighting and we keep going because we can and because we love enough and we must. And what else are you going to do? Even if you sit down and you try to quit, there's still stuff, there's still going to be the bills coming. There's still going to be knocks on the door. You still have hungry mouths to feed. So, it's a lot.
Craig, I want to point something out, going back to Jennifer feeling like a ghost ship. Now, if you're a friend, if somebody goes through this, if you have a friend that goes through this, if you're just there anytime just to help them get through this, I promise you will find how you can be of assistance. I'm sure Jennifer didn't want somebody telling her what to do. However, if Jennifer said, "Hey, I have security concerns," and you never know, you might be able to help. Look, a friend could sit up, on the couch at night so Jennifer and her family could get some sleep, and they could call upon other friends to do that. There's so much you can do that takes very little energy. And it's a show of love to your neighbor and to your friends. And I'm sorry to hear that some people abandoned you. I know that Elizabeth, she went through some similar experiences. So anyway, that's just my thing I wanted to point out. We have got to cut for commercial break. We will be back with Jennifer Verna.
Hey, Tim James here. When I was 37 years old, I had some severe gastrointestinal issues. I was tired, fatigued, wasn't feeling good, skin issues. My health was a mess. Let's just put it that way. Now I'm turning 52 this year, and I have abundant energy. I'm able to trail run and kick the butts of my 22 and 24-year-old sons. Yep, that's right. And do push-ups and all this other fun stuff. How did I do it? Well, one key ingredient, if you want to get healthy, if you want to get your energy back, you want to get your vitality back, is real nutrition. Our soils have been so over-farmed, 85% of the nutrition is gone today, and then the rest is processed out through these processing plants. So what we have created is a formula called Green 85 Juice Formula. You can take 1 scoop in the morning, and we suggest you do another one in the afternoon about a half an hour before dinner, and you will revitalize your health. You will get your health back. You will cut your hunger cravings, and you're going to actually cut your grocery bill in half. This product will literally pay for itself because you cannot eat as much food because your cells are now getting the nutrition they need. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/DOC. That's chemicalfreebody.com/DOC. Get Green 85 today and energize your life and your health so that you can feel as good as I do and Craig does and Forrest. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
This is our final segment with Jennifer Verna today. In this show, we're going to have her back for a part 2 next week because the story is big and we don't want to rush through it, but there's a lot to share. So today in this final segment, we want to talk about what people can do if they find themselves in this situation. What are some solutions? What are some tools? What are some lessons learned? We've got Elizabeth on as well, who's suffered through a similar kind of situation. And so, ladies, a wealth of experience between the two of you. You may not have voted to get that experience, but now that you have it, what a blessing to be able to share it with other people to empower them in case they ever do, they'll be prepared. So what are some things, if there's anything that jumps out at you, we'll just start it with that.
I'd say the first thing is grant yourself some grace, because I didn't have somebody telling me that. I just beat myself up about, I could have done this, I should have done this, how I could have done this. Grant yourself grace. There's no rule book. for something so traumatic happening to your children and to your family, speak to somebody that you trust. I mean, truly, truly trust a mom, your dad, a grandparent. I mean, somebody that's going to hold your secrets to the heart. Legally, get yourself a good attorney, but then get yourself dialed in with services, good therapy. Very, very important to get not only your kids, but yourself a good therapist, somebody that you can really go to war with and unpack a lot of things with, that can be your ally. Elizabeth, is there something you can think of?
So you're spot on with those things, Jennifer. If you are somebody who's been unfortunately put in this position, or your child has been, or you know somebody that has, like Forrest was talking about earlier, like you can be there, you can sit outside their door at night, know that, you know, the person going through it doesn't know what to ask you for. There is so much going on that when people ask you, what can I do to help? Like, you don't even know what to tell these people. So that's really where my journey with you, Jennifer, began. I remember going through it, and I remember being like, I could have used this. Like, I remember that ghost ship feeling. I remember just feeling alone, even though like your family and them are there, it's not the same thing. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to have this really amazing biker group called BACA. And they were fantastic. They came, and when my kids didn't feel safe, they did stand outside. So maybe it's just that, as a friend, or as you want to be helpful. If you know this family is going through it, be willing to, I will stay up all night and I will guard this door. I will make sure nothing happens. Or just bring over a meal. I can't tell you how many nights I had so much going on. I didn't even have the mental capacity, because I was just trying to focus on keeping it together so I could keep my children together, and just trying to deal with every trigger, because it compounds in the home, and you're just so mentally exhausted that all of a sudden it's dinner time and you're like, I don't even know what to do. Just provide a meal. And you know, I really learned so much about being a parent going through this process. So like Jennifer said, educate yourself, get advice, get help, see a therapist, ask if you don't know how to handle a situation with your child that, you know, comes up, ask, because they will give you the tools, and really just being able to apply them, because it's so hard as a parent to apply what you used to do, whether discipline. Yes, you can do these things. No, you don't get away with these things, because your heart is so broken as a mom of things that you can't do. Like, you can't help them with. You can be there and you can tell them that you will work with them together to get through this. Like, you will be there and you will get through it together, but you can't fix it for them. You can't make them all of a sudden feel safe. You can walk through that with them, and their therapist will really help guide you on how to handle those situations and how to stay true to what your family values are and your rules, and how you apply them and maybe just altering it a little bit different way, but allowing your family to process this in a healthy way, maintain those boundaries like Jennifer was talking about earlier. And I know for me as a parent, that was super helpful. And that's really what inspired me to connect with you, Jennifer, to be honest.
Hey, ladies, Elizabeth and Jennifer, I have a question. As a parent, I mean, if you could go back and turn back time and you understood the evil that's out there, how would you set your kids up? Because one thing that we want our children is, if they're being harmed, you want them to raise their hand. You want them to feel comfortable enough. So how would you tee that up with your kids, that conversation?
So for me, like, I used to talk about stranger danger. I used to talk about like friends and like what's not appropriate, what is not okay, what healthy boundaries were. I would go back and I would change. Like, more often than not, it's the people that you know, that you welcome into your family, that you love and that you trust. I would go back and be like, it's not just strangers. Even if somebody you know, even if somebody of the family tries to do something that's not okay and you say something, that's what I would really go back and fix.
I feel the same because I felt like I did a good job explaining those things to the kids, but also grooming, like what is grooming? What does that look like? Things that I even missed as a mom. And yes, these kind of things can happen within families. They can and they do, and it's awful, but explaining those things better to the kids and letting them know that no matter what, they can always come to me no matter what in their life. And I will always, always, always be here for them. I will always love them. And there is no problem that I can't help them figure out. Nothing's hard enough for them to tell me, like, we will figure it out together. Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you don't think it's going to be somebody that you love that's going to do this to your children.
Yeah.
Stranger danger.
That's the tragedy, is that betrayal, that destruction of that trust. It's deeply traumatizing, and that takes sometimes a lifetime to overcome. It's just so tragic that trust is broken in that way. And man, I hope people will raise their children to never be that monster. Never do that to anyone. It's just so harmful.
And really telling your children it's never okay as an adult. If an adult tells you to keep a secret, that is never okay.
Promise not to freak out. That's a tough one, but it's an important one. That's all the time we have for today's show with Jennifer Verna and Elizabeth Alegria, but we will be back next week with more, and we're going to share with you more of the details, what's going on with this case, what you, the people, need to know. So join us next week on Defending Our Children.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Defending Our Children, the show that empowers the people with the information you need to know. Learn more on how to get involved and make a difference at vetsforchildrescue.org, because the children are worthy.